Good evening. I'll call to order this January 6th meeting of the Plan and Zoning Commission. First item is discussion of upcoming scheduled zoning regulation revision items for review. Sarah, do you want to that summary?
Sure. So we have scheduled for the next couple of meetings certain things that we have been working on as staff and at the recommendation of the commission. So tonight, as you know, based on the agenda that you were provided, this includes those staff recommended zoning regulation changes that we first presented to the board members who were present back in October. John's going to go ahead and give a presentation of that this evening. What we also have on the agenda coming up is, and this has been something that the board has discussed, is the regulations that would allow for third-party review. And that's something that our current Inland Wetlands Commission has available to them, and we're going to mirror their regulations that allow them when the commission and when staff determine that a project meets a certain level of complexity, that the applicant will pay for a third-party reviewer for things like engineering and traffic and that type of thing. So we're going to mirror what has already been adopted for the Conservation Department. And that we expect to be to bring forward to the commission February 10th for kind of a first look at that. On February 27th, we have been working with the engineering department on stormwater regulations, as well as some regulations that are related to sightline distances and traffic. And so we expect that to be brought forward on the 27th. Following that, there are some items that the Affordable Housing Committee has wanted to review with the commission. So we anticipate moving some of those forward, as well as some of the design considerations for the design commercial district. And we'll have to, just to give the commission an understanding as to the process for this. These regulations that are before you tonight, for example, we have to refer those out to the Regional Council of Governments, adjacent municipalities, if we believe that the regulations will affect properties within a certain distance of municipal boundaries, as well as do the newspaper notice 2 weeks before any public hearing is held. So some of the dates may change, but that's the statutory requirement that we have to meet as well as we move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Randolph.
So the process is we get a set of suggestions, we discuss it. How long does the COG have to review it? And then how much time do we have to review it to provide public notice before we, what's the earliest time frame we could vote on it? Just to give me a general idea of the timing.
So we have to give 30 days to the adjacent COGs before we have a public hearing. If we don't hear from them, we can proceed, depending on the type of regulation. So I should actually also add that depending on the type of regulation, sometimes we have to send those to DEP for their review as well. For example, the tidal setback ones that are included.
Kathy's remote. She said she can't enter.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought the same thing.
I want to see her.
Oh, do you have the ability to let her in from there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, so all of those referrals do have a statutory timeline. For most circumstances, it's 30 to 35 days, depending on the agency.
And then, so we have our meeting and then we have 30 days, we've got notice. And then how long can we vote after that 30 days?
Well, I mean, it's really up to the commission. For some of these, you're required to hold a public hearing. Well, for all of these, you're required to hold a public hearing, but then the question is, usually the commission has formatted this. The commission has formatted it so that you have a public hearing, you take in public comment if there's public comment on an item, you close that matter, and then you vote the next meeting. That's up to the commission. If they want to vote the same evening, you can certainly do that. it probably depends on how you feel about whether or not there's, some of these might be very staff related, adjustments to the regulations where there's not a lot of public comment or discussion. So I would say that you could play it by ear, but as long as the public hearing closes, you can deliberate within the time frame that you feel comfortable. There's no requirement after that in terms of, when you have to vote, because it's your application.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you for that.
I have a question. I apologize, I had technical difficulties in the beginning. Are we talking about the new regulations that we'll be passing to implement HB 8002, or are we talking about something else? Because I have some questions about that.
The question was just about just general items that come up in these planning meetings when we discuss any sort of regulation changes and what the process is going to be and timelines for how those might need to be implemented and noticed and all that.
And is that's not then specific to the housing bill?
That was not specific to the house bill.
So can we talk about the housing bill a little bit? Because there are some things we have to get on our plate pretty quick, I think, based on my understanding of the deadlines. As also, I know our Director Harrigan had mentioned before the climate change bill has things starting right now. And I don't know if it's more than just doing coastal site reviews of single family homes and duplexes, or if there's more than that. But can we talk a little bit about deadlines that are coming up that we really have to deal with? I know a couple offhand.
Yeah, so for everything that was in House Bill 8002, those went into effect within state statute as of January 1st. So we do have to adopt regulations relative to those requirements. We just have to draft it up and review it with the town attorney to make sure it's consistent with the statute. But, to summarize generally what those are, it basically prohibits the town from requiring a parking standard for all residential developments with less than 16 units. And then also for developments that are bigger than 16 units, a parking management plan has to be submitted that indicates, if essentially it's very similar to what we allow within our regulations now for kind of a finding of parking adequacy by the applicant in terms of what they assume the parking demand is going to be for the project. So it's very specific and identified in state statute. We will have to propose some language that meets that requirement. I'll just need to check in with Attorney Piers if we have to follow the same timelines in terms of the requirements with referrals and all of that. We have done that, like included in this package today are some of those requirements from SB 9. For the elimination within the coastal site plan exemption requirements that we're bringing before as a public hearing. So I would assume we have to treat that process similarly, but we would get language to the commission similar to this, where you could discuss it. Again, we're still going to have to make sure that any changes that you make are not inconsistent with state law.
Okay, I did not get the package. Is that emailed or is that just hard copy?
It was included as the link in your on your agenda, similar to any other agenda that we provide.
I thought that was just the regulation for today.
Oh, yeah, that's for today. We haven't provided the one for HB 8002 yet.
We haven't drafted. So it's my understanding that, the law went into effect, but certain components of it for the housing law do not get started until July 1st, which gives us a little bit of time. For example, the parking ban section, that's what I call it, the parking ban. And the other one is the commercial to residential conversion, which is either as of right or what do they call it? The review is
without a public hearing.
Summary review, they call it. That's kind of like as of right. But so I think I'd like to have our commission decide when we're going to pass regulations dealing with those two, because I agree we have to pass some kind of parking regulations that would allow us to get as much as we feel we need flexibility for, but also on the commercial to residential, we probably need to pass very detailed regulations because we're not able to do a full review. That's my understanding, but it would be good if the town attorney could weigh in on this and give us some directives as to what our legal rights and obligations are under the new law. How flexible can we be?
Well, yeah, we'll review that. It's because we already had things in progress. You know, we're bringing those things to you first, but we will provide those to you when we have them available.
You mean your draft? So our staff then is drafting regulations?
We will draft regulations in response to the state law requirements, which we then will review with Attorney Piers, our town attorney.
But there are also regulations we might want to pass to position ourselves to be as flexible as we can be. For example, there could be strategies to enable us to have more flexibility with either the commercial to residential conversion or the parking ban laws. I would like for our town attorney to advise us on what that flexibility is before we start drafting regulations. I know other towns are having many discussions with their town attorney. For example, are we allowed to have a public hearing? Well, the law says it's summary review, which is not defined very well. Does that mean you can have public comment? Or does that just mean does it mean it gets dealt with by staff at the zoning window? Or can we have a hearing at all, a meeting? Can we take in evidence? All those things I think I would like our town attorney to advise us on as we go forward with these with those. And also those I do agree those regulations need to be passed well before July 1st. So those have to be started. But I think our commission should understand the different aspects of the law and how much flexibility we have within that law to be able to, I know we can't impose conditions anymore, but there's other things we potentially could do to position ourselves to have better flexibility and take in more evidence to figure things out for any project that could come in.
I think ultimately, I mean, the document, whatever regulations we pass, this commission is going to have input into, regardless of who's the first person taking a draft of those. I think those are all fair, questions to ask when we're weighing in on those regulation amendments. So we'll be able to look at all of that.
But I also think we need more data and more studies in terms of traffic ramifications, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think
into that to try to before having formal regulations done.
everything is up to the discretion of the commission. Ultimately, anything our plan and zoning staff does is, at the commission's direction. If the commission wants something done, that's what'll be done. But I think the regulations, the law gives us some direction. I think our staff can draft regulations based on that, and then I think it makes sense to weigh in on something as opposed to, I'm not sure there's a more practical alternative.
Well, I think we should talk about what our priorities are in terms of, things that we need to further research, talking about transit-oriented development. We do have several train stations in town. Are each of them going to be treated the same in terms of what we allow in those areas? Can we, I've been doing a bunch of reading on this, as I'm sure a lot of you have. And we focus on one train station instead of, looking at the Fairfield downtown to be completely redeveloped. I think that's probably where the majority of Fairfield residents, are up in arms right now about. And, I'd like to know also what the ramifications are on Southport, on the Southport train station. How does this bill affect that train station as well? And the historical buildings around and so there's just a lot of information, I think, before we have, putting pen to paper on developing regulations, that it would be nice to know where we do have leeway and where we don't, what's protected, what's not, what land can we, be looking at, what can we not be looking at. So, I think it's great that we're getting a jump start on it, but I do think we need a lot more data.
Other questions?
To piggyback on that, I know that there's one thing we can do. The new statute, which I'm sure if anyone's read it, it's pretty clear. We are allowed to designate up to 8% of our town's land mass as exempt from that parking ban aspect of the law. But we have to be artful in how we do it. We have to figure out where we don't want to have a parking ban imposed. And it has to be in no more than 2 zones, up to 4% of the town each. That requires some research, some data collection, some discussion, and we need to do it. We can protect our town from the parking ban in areas that we think it would be very bad to not be able to require off-street parking for developments. So to me, that's a high priority. As soon as we pass that, that's very important that we do that as soon as possible. So then I think it would be helpful if our town attorney could tear apart this statute and talk in more detail about all these things. Also define what as of right means versus summary review. Are we allowed to hold a public hearing? Can someone file an environmental intervention if there's a summary review? What kind of conditions are we allowed or not allowed to impose if we do find an issue of public health or safety? And also, we should be probably drafting very detailed regulations on exactly what we want or don't want in terms of the commercial to residential development, because if it only has a summary review, we want to at least detail as much as what we would find acceptable in our regulations. I assume that's what our staff is working on now, but I think our commission should discuss it before we get a draft provided to us. Maybe we should even have a subcommittee or something.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. We can continue discussions on some of these individual regulations as we go. Obviously, we'll have these planning meetings monthly, and there will be other opportunities to discuss those. Move on to the next section, applications to recommend to public hearing, just one today. 3400 Post Road, a special exception application of 3400 PR LLC to remodel the existing buildings, reconfigure the site circulation and signage package for an existing car wash in a design commercial district zone. It's a special exception application, so you're required. Can I have a motion? Commissioner Randolph.
I move to add to recommend to public hearing.
Thank you. Commissioner Randolph moves to recommend to public hearing. Can I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing is required. I put this to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to recommend to a public hearing, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to our public hearing. Is an application of the Town of Fairfield Plan and Zoning Department to amend the following sections of the zoning regulations. It's a lengthy list, so bear with me for a moment. Section 3.4.1 and section 5.4. Are you going to read all these individually?
Why are you looking at me?
Whichever one of you. I will make it be you.
You're happy to, whatever's easiest for you.
If you're going to read all of them, then I can forego.
I do think that, Assistant Director Mullen is going to do a presentation. So if you want to just summarize by, say, the staff recommended zoning regulation changes to be presented and summarized by our staff person, that would be
Yes,
probably.
that's fair. There's a long list of sections within our zoning regulations listed in the agenda that our staff will be presenting. And so I guess I will be turning it over to you, Mr. Vaughn.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. My name is Jonathan Mullen, Assistant Planning Director. With me here is Matt Decker, Zoning Enforcement Officer, and Chris Rogers, Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer. We've been working as a staff for a couple months now on coming up with staff recommended zoning regulation changes that we have put together. I have put together a presentation to go through our kind of long list, but not too bad of a presentation, only 25 slides. And I will go through each one of the regulations and why we, as a staff, feel this is important. A lot of what we are doing is we are codifying longstanding internal office policies. We are trying to bring the regulations into compliance with recent state statute changes and do some common sense things that have been that just are we as a staff see on a day-to-day basis. Mostly the zoning enforcement officers see when in their day-to-day interactions with folks coming up to the counter and applying for pools, sheds, additions, roofs, things of that nature. So without further ado, I'll begin. The first regulation that we looked at were require setbacks from the tidal wetlands. This slide encompasses both the single and multifamily zones that we are planning on having a 25-foot setback and rear setback and a 10-foot side yard setback from wetlands from properties that are adjacent to wetlands. So why are we making this change? Historically, the Conservation Commission has been the commission that's handled this right or wrong, and they've now they are not doing that. They're actually, and it's kind of shifted over to where it should have been all along, really, in our lane in the planning and zoning. So we know that there needs to be some setback from wetlands, and there's some possibly even stricter standards that we could apply, but we figured that 25 rear and 10-foot side in both multi and single family zones would be a good place to start. So that is section 3.4.2 and section 5.4.1 setback standards.
Can we ask questions now or at the end?
I think it would probably be better to go. Go ahead.
I would recommend, why don't we let John go through the
Sure.
whole thing, and then let's do questions afterwards, and then it's a public hearing, so,
Yeah, let's do that.
you know, you open it up to public comment.
Okay, our next regulation amendment is mechanicals and HVAC equipment in flood zones. So what we wanted to do there is this is a longstanding office internal policy that we've had, which would exempt mechanical equipment from setbacks and lot coverage. However, mechanical equipment shall meet the setback projection requirements. So this is section 3.5.2, coverage and bulk exceptions for single family zones in the flood zone. So again, this is something that in conversations with the zoning enforcement officers, this is something that they recommended, that they see a lot. And this is how we've been handling these types of platforms and HVAC mechanicals in flood zones. So we wanted to codify that into the zoning regulations. The next regulation that we are recommending is removal of pools in the flood zone, the coastal flood zone, the coastal high hazard flood zones and coastal AE Limois zones. This would be section 4.2. Point D.4 and section 20.2.5 coastal hazard VE zones. And in both of those areas, we've said swimming pools are not. So the first one is for the beach district. Swimming pools are not permitted in the beach district. Spas and hot tubs would be permitted only if they're located above the design flood elevation. And then the second one would be, in general, would be swimming pools wouldn't be permitted in the coastal VEs and coastal AE Limois zones. So why are we making this change? Because pools in the coastal AE and Limois, a lot of that is down in this area of town. And pools present a hazard to both the environment and safety during large storm events. The regulations that FEMA put forth speak to buoyancy and frangibility, meaning they have to, and our regulations speak to it as well, is that you cannot, structures below the BFE in the coastal zones have to be frangible. And they also have to be, according to FEMA, they have to be non-buoyant, they have to be anchored. So that's a pretty high standard, and we feel that it just removing them from this from that zone would be the right way to go. Existing pools would become not legal non-conforming, and that is how we will be handling moving forward with that. Our next set of regulation amendments would be from section 4.10, which would be lot coverage in the beach zone. Why are we doing this? We're doing this to codify a longstanding policy, office policy. And it's really to allow for more pervious surface on properties in the beach zone district. And the big push here is we did some reformatting. And also we really kind of teased out how we handle driveways with pavement. We really don't want to have more pavement in the beach zone. So we will be, if you have to remove pavement, you can't put it back. That's really what this is saying. And then also it makes exceptions for pathways, which are of certain dimensions that will be allowed to be there and they won't count towards your lot coverage. All right, this is a pretty simple one up next. This is again in the beach zone. This is in the Pine Creek, dike easement. We are not allowing any construction right now. It seems pretty obvious that you wouldn't want to construct in the Pine Creek dike easement, but we've seen it. And so we want to put that in there that if you have the easement that goes across your backyard, you can't construct anything in there. Now, I know you're thinking, where am I going to put all my stuff in my backyard? And this picture here, I got a little chuckle out of this one. I got this from powerhousecoachinc.com. And what we did with this regulation in section 14 is create a new accessory structure regulation, an actual section. And what it does is it talks about, distances, setbacks, and exemptions. It also clarifies what counts as a boat, what counts as a recreational trailer. And it's what is and what isn't an accessory structure. It also speaks to things like batting cages, tree houses, and open pergolas, and telling that they are not indeed accessory structures. Far on me. Okay. Next would be section 5. Oh, by the way, that section, just for the record, that's section 14 for accessory structures. So that's number there. The next section here, I'm sorry, this got a little out of order. Section 14 should come after this, but we have section 5.7, architectural standards for duplexes. And what we wanted to do there is we see a lot of this type of configuration, as you see on the screen, where the common wall is probably 20% or less of the connection, and that tends to lead to a look that looks like two units on a lot. Not that we want to necessarily not have two duplexes, but we want to make sure that they have some sort of architectural standard with how much connection we require. So what we're going to do is establish a minimum standard for that the common walls where it's connected should have at least 50% a common wall of the next unit. The next section is section 16, which deals with alcoholic beverages. This one here is a favorite of our zoning enforcement officer here, who I guess this happened prior to me getting here. There was, for the restaurants, we removed the requirement for 1,500 feet distance requirement for restaurants, but we didn't do it for cafes. It's pretty much the same, and we want to make sure that we treat them the same. When you have removed the requirement, you allow for cafes to kind of group together and be a little bit more vibrant and create more vibrancy in the areas where they are. And it's something that right now we have to give variances for this. So we do it for restaurants, and so we'd like to make sure that these are treated the same. And that would be section 16.1.2. Okay. Next section would be section 17 of it would be a new section. And this would be the architectural and site design standards. Currently, we have these in our center business district. And we wanted to move, what we've done is we didn't change any of these regulations. We took them out of the section that they're in and put them in a new section. This is kind of a placeholder. Step one in the process of creating designed area district-wide architectural and site design standards. Kind of what we did here was I took some pictures of things that we like on the post road and some of the designs that we don't like. with the part with the street frontage and strong street presence and sidewalks up top, and then parking in the front with a building setback in kind of a 1960s strip mall style on the bottom. Again, this will require future amendments.
And just to clarify, what we're doing right now is we're just moving this to its own section. And I understand that that this may be something that the commission may want to dive deeper into and make some modifications to. But for right now,
Yeah.
we're just reorganizing this within the regulations themselves.
Yeah.
And expanding what it applies to. So all of the design business, design commercial, or design industrial districts for now. And then we can dive deeper into whether you feel like there need to be modifications.
Okay, so that would be section 17. Okay. Next section we would be discussing, or we would be proposing to change, would be a new section, another new section. We took, and we're going to have this one be section 19, fences and walls. And this would be a new section that we deal with. And again, this was a zoning enforcement officer really driven revision where we wanted to look at visibility in intersections. And if you look at the diagram on the top left, right-hand corner, the darker triangles on either side of the streets are the areas that would be considered, we would not have any shrubbery or fences over a certain height. So that would be one, that would be a very important aspect of it. This drawing, that diagram would be integrated into the new, as a part of this section. I think visuals work pretty well in this situation. We were trying to explain to somebody how this works at an intersection. We also talked about exceptions in this one. And where the setbacks from the property line should be with when you have walls of certain heights. And that is it. And the picture there is actually, that is actually not in Fairfield. That is on the way to my mom's house in Waterford. And it is, I've driven that road probably since I turned 16, and it's looked just like that. And it's really hard to see at that intersection. You have to pull your nose pretty much out into almost into the middle of the lane when you go to the street there. So we're trying to avoid something like that. I took this picture this weekend. So that actually, let me try. That's section 19. All right, next section would be section 22. Again, a new section. And this section would be section 22. We're making this change for clarification of standards for mechanical equipment. Talking about the things like HVAC equipment, utility meters, electrical vehicle chargers, generators, and ground mounted solar arrays. And how those work with setbacks and lot coverage, and what screening we require for these types of things on a property and on a site plan that we would approve. So that would be section 22. The next section again would be section 25, which is an existing section. We're adding some stuff to this with regards to signs, and this would be section 25. We deal with some continuous strip lighting, and then what we really wanted to touch on this, and this again was Matt and Chris weighed in pretty a lot on this, was to excuse me. Was to really to make exceptions for window signs, for open signs for businesses. And making sure that they can, open signs don't count against a business owner towards a lighted window sign. Okay. This would be section 26. This would be a new section. It clarifies setbacks, and it would be for swimming pools and spas. We do talk about them currently, but we wanted to put them into their own section to kind of talk about the common issues that we run into, meaning setbacks, lot coverage, and grading in FEMA flood zones. If you have a pool in a FEMA flood zone, not of AE or a coastal AE, but just a regular AE zone, you would have to, rather than, you can't fill, you can only cut. meaning you can't bring in to grade for your pool, you can't bring in extra fill because then that would change the grade and cause water to be displaced possibly at other properties. So we want to make that clear. That would be section 26. Then next section we'd be dealing with is in section 29. Currently, we have a regulation that talking about public hearings following the expiration of a special permit for zone changes. We're changing this because state statute does not give the TCP authority to require this deadline, so we are removing it. That would be section 30. Section 32. Again, this is a section that exists currently, and to bring ourselves into compliance with Public Act 2533, we'd be removing the exemption for construction of single family houses in the CAM area and in a flood zone. That's currently exempted, that was exempted prior to October, and now it is not. So we have to make our regulations comply with state statute. That's what we're doing on this one, section 32. In our definitions section, which is section 35, currently we define what a swimming pool is. Well, we have a definition, so to speak, of a swimming pool. However, it is a definition, it is a regulation disguised as a definition. And when you're making regulations, you don't want to have in your definitions, put your rules in your definitions. You want to talk specifically about what the thing is you're trying to define and put the regulations someplace else. We did that with our swimming pool section. We took a lot of and this was one that was given the DEOs kind of some headaches when it came to what exactly a pool is. So we wanted to clear that up, and I think we borrowed this definition from we have a planning dictionary that other towns put all their definitions in from around the country. And I think we cobbled together several for the swimming pool definition that we put here. And hang on a minute, let me admit somebody here. Okay. And that is section 35. That's my presentation. Again, I want to thank Chris and Matt for weighing in on this. You're going to be seeing probably some more from them as we go through this. They really are the rubber that hits the road when it comes to dealing with folks. And some of these kind of fairly complicated little things that just have gone on and haven't been rectified. And when you actually sit down and talk about it, that's kind of what we did. That's led us to these regulations. So with that, any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
And I just want to make one quick clarification. Some of the renumbering comes as a result of the deletion of section 16, which pertained to amusement devices, which was a regulation that was historically from the 80s, where there were a lot of arcades, which no longer exist. So we didn't feel like those regulations were something to bring forward for us. People are doing that stuff at home. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, for putting those together. And before commission questions, just public service announcement. If you're joining remotely and wish to be heard on any of these regulations, you're going to have to sign in chat and indicate you wish to speak, or press the raise hand button. Otherwise, we won't be able to recognize you. So please do that now. Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Okay, I'll keep it quick. One question relates to HB 8002, the new housing law that was passed in November. These architectural and design standards, is there any reason we could not include those in our new regulations that I assume we'll be drafting to specify what we want or don't want when a building is converted from commercial to residential? Is there any prohibition against design standards? Because to me, that's pretty important. Does anyone know?
I would have to review that with the town attorney. I don't know that the statute is really that specific. But I don't know that we would. The statute also doesn't enumerate that we are allowed to come up with very specific design guidelines for the conversion of an existing building from a commercial use to a residential use outside of life safety requirements that are otherwise required by state codes. So, I don't know that we're gonna be able to say to a developer who comes in, no, you have to completely redo the skin of this building in order to convert it from a commercial to a residential use. So
Well, that's
this.
certainly something to ask the town attorney about. I would like the town
Right,
attorney to
so
speak to our
that's something.
commission. Yeah.
Correct. So that would be
Yeah.
something where I would feel like I would need to have that conversation with him before I could respond to your question in full.
I think we need to have the conversation with the town attorney. He is our counsel, and I would like our town attorney to advise us on all these particularities of this complex law. I would like to have him speak to us directly so we can have a Q&A session.
Commissioner Bro, that's fair. Let's stay focused on these regulation changes.
Okay,
think
so
that's
I
a-
have
That's a fair discussion to have.
Specific question about this. Getting back to the wetlands. the
I'm sorry,
tidal
I'm sorry,
wetlands-
Commissioner Braun, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. I think
Yeah.
given the number of these, I think some of these probably aren't going to have many questions, but just so we're not bouncing all over the place, let's just work.
I
our
only have
way
one
up.
question about wetlands, about tidal wetlands.
Okay,
So the setback rear adjacent to a tidal marsh is going to be 25 feet and side adjacent to a tidal marsh 10 feet. My questions are, if conservation has been doing this so far, have there been any setbacks in our regulations related to this? Are we expanding them? Or are we reducing them? I thought last time we spoke about this, they're being reduced. If that could be addressed. And also, I just want to point out, every time an expert comes and talks to us about tidal wetlands, we're supposed to have like 100-foot buffer to allow the tidal wetlands to migrate. So allowing a very small setback to me would potentially jeopardize that. So if you could speak to that, whoever spoke to, did anyone speak to conservation about this?
It's not conservation's jurisdiction.
Right, did anyone speak to conservation about this? I asked last time if somebody would speak to conservation about it.
It's not conservation's jurisdiction.
I understand that. I just want to know if we spoke to conservation about it because they are experts and they are responsible for marsh restoration. And they don't have regulatory jurisdiction, but they certainly are our town expert. Same way we talk to the police about police matters, but they don't have jurisdiction over what we do either. So I asked last time this came up if we could speak to conservation and get weigh in from them on whether this small setback is
Excuse me,
healthy for the
Commissioner Braun?
environment.
Matt Decker, for the record, zoning officer. Just for the record, anytime a permit or a request for a permit comes before our office, we always verify or at least check to see if there is any soils on the parcel. And even if there isn't, and it's title, we make a phone call or we go downstairs and speak to your compliance officer, Sarah, or Tim Bishop, their director, if need be. All the agencies are in the loop with all permits that come before all agencies. And we don't in any way not try or avoid communicating with any of our other opponents that go with approving a building permit. So yes, to answer your question, we do communicate with conservation on a daily basis.
But they didn't, did they look at this change? Like, they know that we're obviously
This is actually
shifting.
this is more stringent than what was bestowed upon them as a group. Our regulation requirement here, the amendment that we're looking to impose, is by far more prohibitive for structures to be built than what was in the regulations of conservation for their permits. They had a buffer of anywhere between 75 feet and 100 feet. We're looking at 25 to 10. I mean, that there is, it doesn't matter what they were doing. We're that much stronger on our regulation than they were.
I'm confused. 75 to 100 feet sounds like a bigger buffer than 25 to 10, so I don't understand that.
This is, well, first off, most of the properties that are involved with this this new regulation are 5,000 to 6,000 square foot lots. There aren't many of them where these numbers will come into play when you're thinking of properties that are up on Greenfield Hill, that are where a good portion of the properties have inland wetland soils and are regulated by conservation. That's not where the tidal lines are. The tidal lines are down by the creeks and the marshes and, obviously, the sound. So, I think with the numbers that we have here, we are going to be able to hold the homeowner to a more specific and, closer, setback line. Because
Closer to the
title,
wetland.
title conservation doesn't have any jurisdiction on title at all.
Right, but I understand that, but they were allowing structures when they were kind of managing this before, but they were allowing structures within 25 feet or 10 feet of a tidal wetland before?
They weren't managing it. We were, if it was title. We just didn't have a regulation in place to provide a buffer. Now we're attempting to put it into the book as a regulation so that we are able to enforce where and how someone can build on their property that has or is affected by tidal wetlands.
So in the past, conservation was sort of informally handling it, but it was really approved by you, right? As
No,
these,
they weren't, nothing with title they were doing. Title fell under the zoning office.
Well,
okay,
that's not 100% true.
Well,
It's not
they didn't, but they didn't have a number that they used. It would be essentially, again, everything's coordinated together.
right.
It's not one, we don't shut a door on anybody. So any questions that we aren't able to answer, we always go downstairs and talk to them.
Okay,
Uh,
so
thank you,
now
Commissioner.
this does not impact in any way our we now, based on SB9, the coastal resiliency law that was just passed, we now have to do coastal site plan review of every application, right? Single family duplexes, everything, right? So this does not interfere, does it, with our ability
No,
to
not at all.
Does not.
a bigger buffer if we wanted, right? This is
No.
just telling the homeowner the minimal you have to have, right?
That's correct. But keep in mind too, that in our zoning regulations, we only had a setback from a property boundary. This allows us to set back from an actual resource, which we did not have within the zoning regulations previously. So this allows us more separation from that identified tidal resource. Now, this will cause a lot of nonconformities because we have a fully developed shoreline with a lot of properties that are going to fall within this 25-foot. But we are requesting that we revise this regulation because we know that sea level rise is coming and the coastal environment has probably been too built out based on where it should be, based on that increased flood elevation height and more regular sunny day flooding, all of those different things. This allows us to provide that resource buffer.
And I appreciate that. Is there any reason why it couldn't be made bigger? Is there a logistical reason that we can't make those buffers bigger, those setbacks bigger? Keeping in mind, we could require more when we do coastal site plan review, right? Based on environmental issues.
In the research that we did with the parcels that are affected, as it is right now, establishing these regulations, the setback line is going to be down the center of most of the houses.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah,
So to make it any bigger, it would eclipse the entire property.
I hear you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Just so I'm clear, as I understand it, our zoning regulations didn't previously address the tidal setbacks.
Correct.
This would be an absolute ban of any new construction within these 25 and 10 foot. And it would still be subject to coastal site plan review, correct?
Correct, but I'm not sure I'd like to use the word ban.
Well,
I think it would.
They would have to go for a
Appeals would be required, but most definitely, even without the setbacks, a CAM application would be required for any addition under today's regulations effective October 1. So yes.
Commissioner Randolph.
So just thanks for the explanations on how many properties this affects. So with these F and G setbacks, if there's existing structures within this area and there's a renovation or some type of substantial change, how are those changes impacted by this regulation?
Well, that falls under the flood jurisdictions as well. Most of the properties that are within the title are within a flood zone. So where there's a cost analysis that comes with any improvement if the house isn't FEMA compliant, for one. Two, if they're going to do any type of construction that is in addition to the existing foundation, they would need an application for their CAM, and they would also need an application to the zoning board of appeals to seek a waiver for that setback modification. And I would say that as in anything, a response back from DEEP would be the first place to start. If they don't feel that it's in any way harmful to do that, they'll sign off on the CAM, in which case they would make an application to the ZBA. If there's a cost associated with it that takes them over that threshold, then they have to become FEMA compliant. But that would have happened even if this regulation wasn't in play.
Commissioner Capozzi.
That's sort of on the heels of Commissioner Randolph's question. I have a two-part question. If there was a flood and there was substantial damage to a home that was within, that was sort of half in, half out of this boundary, would they be able to reconstruct the damaged portion under this new regulation?
They would we don't have a section that would waive that, so they would need another application to the zoning board of appeals to rebuild their house if it was damaged beyond 50% casualty. We do have a casualty section in the the first portion of the regulations under section 2, that if you have more than 50% casualty for whatever the purpose may be, whether it's a fire or a flood or what have you, and they're a non-conforming structure, they need a variance back to the zoning board of appeals to rebuild.
Okay, and then sort of as a follow-up, and this may be a question for the town attorney, but do we get into Fifth Amendment taking land if we pass this?
I plead the fifth on that one.
Smart. Meaning
Great question.
if we render a person's property, if something is damaged and they, for some reason, they can't rebuild because of this new setback, and we render their property worthless, is the town then obligated to purchase the property?
I don't think we would ever do that, but that's an opinion. I'm not an attorney. so
No, I
can't
know,
answer
that's why.
that, but we had a couple of structures that were totally demolished during Sandy that were wiped away. A couple actually went into the creek.
Okay.
That didn't prohibit them from being able to go back and rebuild.
Okay.
So I think that might be able to answer your question. They still can rebuild, but there may be like some of the ones on Fairfield Beach Road that got damaged beyond, they needed a variance because they were more than 50% casualty.
Sure.
So if they obtained the variance, they would be able to rebuild. Most of them, they're garages, but there was a couple of homes that were really damaged beyond 50%.
Did you have something to add, Ms. Harvey?
The only thing that I would say is that takings law is very clear. Someone may argue that you have completely diminished their economic return on a parcel just because they can't build a structure as big as they would like. That's not a full taking. So this has come up in a variety of different cases, including Supreme Court cases. And, as long as there is some potential for enjoyment of their site, even if they can't build a structure because there's an ambient hazard present, that's not the town doing the taking. It's, you're prioritizing public health safety over, building a structure where probably a structure shouldn't be. So I think that there has been Supreme Court correct on this issue in several cases.
Any other questions on this first item only? And then we'll move on from there. No? Okay. Questions on the second one, access to mechanicals, exemption access to mechanicals from setback and coverage requirements. Commissioner Levy.
And just so I understand it, assuming a sideline setback is 7 feet, if somebody wants to put their compressor on their sideline, as I read this, they would be able to have a platform that would go all the way to the 7-foot property line, but the mechanicals couldn't be within that 7 feet. Am I reading that correctly?
Mechanicals are accessory structures, so their setbacks to the side are typically smaller. 4 feet if they're able to meet a certain distance going back from the street line. For the most part, until you get to in the beach area or in the flood area, the zones are A and B. We have a few houses that are in the R3 zone, which are a little bit larger. But for the most part, it's 60 feet from the front property line, and then you could be as close to 4 feet to the side and or the rear for the accessory mechanical unit. The platform itself was discussion that we had to eliminate for a couple of reasons. Primarily, it's for mechanics only, and it's not for habitable space, not having a party on the deck, nothing like that. But also to allow them the ability to make it a little bit larger for maintenance purposes. Obviously, as you know, in the flood zone, everything's lifted, elevated to be FEMA compliant. Some of them are up on the roof line. So you're looking at 20, 30 feet in the air. And on a couple of inspections, I just didn't feel comfortable with the thought of somebody going up and trying to maintain 2 air conditioning units that are 35 feet in the air. So to give them a little bit more space and not to penalize the homeowner with losing lot coverage because they would have to build a bigger platform. That's why we went down that road. But the mechanicals, as you say, still need to meet the required sideline and setbacks.
That means you could get a ladder up there and actually stand up there and work on it.
Correct. Or you can have an access door from the roof that some people have, where you're not hindered to working from one side or another.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Randolph.
You explained it very clearly, but it's not exactly what the words say. So I think.
Yeah, we only have so much paper to put on, so.
Right, but I think maybe so basically you're saying platforms, decks, and stair access exclusively for mechanical equipment, shall be basically not counted as part of the building, be accounted as accessory structures. Coverage.
Correct. They're not counted for setbacks or coverage
Yeah,
requirements.
So I think it might need a couple more words in there.
Sure.
I think the intent's good, but
Agreed.
because you explained it, but when I read it, I had the same questions that Commissioner Leedy had. So, and we're both used to read these things, right?
Absolutely.
So that means that if someone wanted to add a generator to their home in the beach area on a house that may be non-conforming, does that mean that this ordinance would apply to them? So they'd
Yes.
be allowed to build a structure for a generator?
Correct. Because anywhere in town, any mechanical unit, if it's sitting on the ground or on a pad that's less than 12 inches above grade, we don't count toward coverage. I don't count the actual machine or the unit for coverage. I only require it for setbacks because depending on the house and the location, it could be pretty tight to a neighbor. So I'd want it back further away from, the primary living area. But, if somebody wanted to add something or even put air conditioning in their house and they put a unit up, we would have to follow the setbacks for the units, just not the platform.
Sorry,
Sorry,
sorry, I didn't mean to. Just to clarify, when I was running for office at the beach area, a few people, there was confusion around the platform itself counting toward max coverage for their lot.
It does right now.
Okay, and so this would modify that
It would
to,
eliminate it.
okay, so if they put a platform, that would no longer count toward their max coverage on their
Correct.
lot. Okay, good.
Because again, it's just for a mechanical use. It's not a sitting deck. It's nothing like that. I'm not gonna have any doors coming out of the house to a platform like that. Unless, of course, it's up on top where it's used primarily and only for maintenance.
A lot of this was hinged upon UI, because they require a, staircase to get to the meter. And, it would cause the platform and so forth to be within the setback. So it's kind of alleviating a lot of problems.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else on this item?
So it would need to be for a generator, not it's a deck and in the future I'm going to put a generator on.
No, it was
Plumbed for a generator.
specifically for the mechanical unit.
Otherwise you have people.
Yeah, no, yep. New trick, just not that well.
Questions on prohibiting pools in beach, coastal, and flood zones?
Hi.
Roseanne and Monahan.
So if there were, and I think you answered this in your presentation, I just may not have understood it properly. If I owned a beach house that did have a pool that was then sort of a non-conforming grandfathered in structure, if it were damaged and needed to in some sort of catastrophic event and needed to be kind of repaired, according to this, we could no longer do that, or could you, or how does that?
That non.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
Once it's gone, it's gone. Okay.
Well, that's just in the VE zone, Quasi zone.
So once the pool pool is gone, so no repairs can be made to it, no,
Well, maintenance could be done to a pool like it would,
no conversion from one type to another, nothing.
I would say no, yeah.
How many homes do we think this will affect?
On the beach, half a dozen.
Well, Fairfield Beach Road, Pine Creek Ave.
Yeah,
French
I'm
Street.
down Pine Creek, yeah, well, French Street doesn't, I don't think French Street has any pools. But on Pine Creek Ave, there's probably half a dozen. I think on Fairfield Beach Road, there might be 8.
But the pools on Pine Creek Road arguably have never had water on the property.
Correct.
From any storm.
But it's in the Limahl area, so.
I agree, but I think that this is really stringent for someone whose property is protected, part of it, a dike.
Sure.
The Army Corps of Engineers built. And the fact that the properties have never seen water, even including these massive storms, to be told you have a pool, and now in the future, the pool can no longer be constructed. I personally think that that is very detrimental to their property values and also the neighborhood values.
We had conversations about that. And, the unfortunate thing is we're not going to change the zone because of that. And in some cases we can't. So unfortunately, yes, there are going to be some people that won't be happy with the regulation.
But could you make it more about the elevation of the property or something versus, I mean, the likelihood of those properties being hit by a massive storm that would cause any, I mean, if you go down and this stretch of beach that I'm talking about, a lot of the area has a wall in front of it. The Army Corps of Engineers built a dike. Houses are elevated. Homes are, some of them almost at grade and have never seen water.
Correct. And
So
I don't,
I
and
think that
Sandy
that's
didn't have it either.
incredibly, that's going to be tough to swallow to someone who's bought a house and built a pool and
We've actually had conversations with a couple of people who have been looking to buy houses and have told them that, pools are gone. They're not, we're not issuing any additional permits for pools.
Also, based on the FEMA requirements, the pool has to be frangible. It's impossible to build a frangible pool.
Well, it's either frangible or it cannot become buoyant.
Yeah, it can't be. So
There's a way to build it. It's just very, very expensive.
Other questions on this one?
when would this kick in?
Whenever you say so.
Once 3.
Commissioner Randolph.
Give people time on this.
Just this being picky, but I was confused by this until I got to section 35. But I think swimming pool should be a capitalized defined term. Since you define it later. And then hot tubs and spas should be as well. Because you define it in the back and you clarify the issue, but it's just a general term up here.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else? Lot coverage, clarifications to lot coverage. So. Commissioner Randolph.
Is there an opportunity to regulate curb cuts in this section or is that a whole different topic?
They're usually regulated by the engineering department
Yeah.
because it's within the public right of way. So we would have to consult with them.
Which, are you talking about a specific part of the
Well-
neighborhood or?
Well, curb cuts lead to paved areas. And so if we regulate curb cuts, then we're.
Well, the beach district, the engineering department requires an apron, period. And they do that primarily because we don't allow asphalt, but you are able to put down stone. So they want to have an apron to prevent nominal runoff of the stone out into the street. So even if, I don't honestly, on Fairfield Beach Road, from the point all the way down to Reef Road, I don't know where they could put another curb cut, to be honest with you. And even as you get down to the pavilion, curb cuts are tight to any degree. I mean, there are very, very few properties, even in the flood zone, that would allow someone to do a horseshoe driveway to add an additional curb cut to it. I understand what you're asking, but I don't even know if it's possible. And there's a maximum width that you can have your apron out as well,
So there is a maximum width on aprons?
24 feet.
24 feet.
Okay. So that would effectively be a curb cut limitation, right?
Well, that's absolutely, yes. And again, as Emeline, Director Harrigan had said, it's engineering issues the permit for that.
Anything else on this item? Setbacks from Pine Creek in the Beach Zone District. Multifamily residence districts, the unit configuration, Commissioner Randolph.
Some additions that we know of that where the roof line, it's not only the setback, but the roof line is really irregular and unsightly, right? Mr. Delgado, the one we were looking at, where there's an addition and it's not just a common wall, but is there a way to, have you considered regulating the roof line as well as the common wall?
Regulating it how?
Say that it has to have a common pitch, come to a common point, with the exception of dormers, there's a lot of.
We have a specific one in mind that I can at least try to put my mind on and
I can provide you with something, but you know what, we're seeing a lot of these additions and like there's one that in Commissioner Delgado's neighborhood that's particularly egregious and it's like a front and back and it looks kind of like, somebody.
unfortunately, we don't have, I really don't want to say it, but we don't have an architectural review board.
No, but
And
this roof pitches are something we could.
that falls under the jurisdiction of the building department in regard to,
Well, it doesn't necessarily.
just the
Yeah.
pitch itself is what I was going to refer to.
So what I would say with this is that we had a couple of really awful applications where they literally were trying to connect on a diagonal.
Yeah.
Terrible. It is up to the discretion of this board to decide, do you want to permit duplexes that are only side by side or one on top of the other? You could do that. We allow these as of right. You could throw in a standard. At minimum, we felt like there needed to be at least a 50% connection, right? Because the other applications were so awful and we realized we didn't have anything to prevent what they were asking for.
There are a couple of properties out there that are extremely deep.
Oh, this is
But-
a huge step in the right direction, but we've looked at some of these and there's some very creative things that happen that are
So-
really unsightly.
You
So
can send me the information. I can certainly go out and take a look at them, at least so I have an idea of what we're talking about.
I'll talk to them, but I think,
But you could, I mean, because it does really force the design, right?
does, yeah.
So we're allowing duplexes as of right. So today, if somebody in a B zone has a 9,000 square foot lot that doesn't require CAM, that doesn't require inland wetlands approval, they can walk into our office today and get a permit. And that's always the way our duplex regulations have been. It's only been recently where we've had these couple where it's been like, ooh, so, if we feel like unfortunately we've hit a period where people thought about duplexes in the same way as we did as an office, and now they're starting to push the envelope a little bit, maybe we need to tighten that envelope.
that's exactly, my concern, because Commissioner Delgado and I, look, there's one that is in his neighborhood. And if we could perhaps I think this is a great start, but maybe we can go a little further. And I'll discuss it. We'll discuss it with you guys.
I would, again, I would definitely, when we do the votes for these, I would say that you have to discuss this as a commission. So if there's alternative tighter language that you want to propose, we can certainly bring that back. I do think the intent is that these don't look horrendous, right? We don't want to diminish the ability of property owners to do this, but we want to give them clear direction that they, either should be side by side, they should be up and down, right? They shouldn't be just attached by a very small umbilical. That's not what we intended.
I'm gonna ask you a
Commissioner
silly
Monahan.
question. Why do we not have an architectural review board? Number one, do other towns have one? And is that something that we should be considering? And two, are we allowed to dictate shapes? Are we allowed to say, these are the 5 options? So if you're looking to build a duplex, here are your 5 options. You can aesthetically do under that with what you put. So I think that's.
That might be a tough pill to swallow, unfortunately. I think, and I totally understand where you're coming from. Would it make our job easier? More than likely, yes. As well as some of the other agencies that we deal with in town. And I think, this might be a question for Attorney Pierce, but I would have a hard time telling somebody no. they can't build what they want to build if it falls within our regulations. And to tighten the regulations to a point that may prohibit somebody from doing that would potentially lead to other legal issues. Again, I think we've, in my 20+ years, I've seen many things come across the table. The Architectural Review Board being more toward mass development that falls under the jurisdiction of the commission. I think for a single family house, we do have a historic district that reviews applications that fall in their jurisdiction. But I think the rest of the town, in all honesty, if we're looking at plans every single day as a review board, it'd be hard to get it, keep the flow going for construction with the amount of time that we would have to review things. I personally think that I have not issued a permit for something that was beyond egregious to a point that aesthetically just didn't make sense, regardless of whether or not the building department or engineering would approve it. I can certainly understand, part of this primary portion of this regulation is to keep the buildings within the parameter of each other rather than having, one all the way up front and one all the way in the back, but still touched by, a thread. Front and back is fine, but, front and back and staggered is different. Leading to potential roof lines, that's, you can fall into a, very, I'm not going to say ugly, but compromised design.
I think, yeah, we can dictate the envelope. I mean, that's what form-based code is. That's what I work with in the city of Bridgeport. I think we do have to recognize the fact that we have a lot of long lots in this town. So like if we were to try to be more prescriptive in what's allowed, we would have to, I think, really take stock in the parcels that exist, especially the ones that are conforming for multifamilies, and try to come up with a solution that strikes that balance.
Sure.
But it is possible, for sure. And I think to the extent that we can make things easier for you all instead.
You can give me some ideas. That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, and we can definitely talk through some of the ways that it works in Bridgeport and see if some of that aligns with kind of your day-to-day and how, if modified, it can work here.
Sure. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. A new section on accessory structure regarding location setbacks and maximum number. Commissioner Randolph.
Sorry, troublemaker here. But yeah, discuss this with Assistant Director and Director Harrigan. I think this is an opportunity to perhaps do something that's more specific. I think that there's some opportunities here for to really it's to help support essentially enforcement of some of the blight issues that I see creeping up. So I would recommend that we I think that what's here is good, but I think there's an opportunity to go a little further for storage containers, dumpsters, work trailers, numbers of vehicles, parking vehicles on lawns. And I think there is a consensus in the community and on the commission that these are kind of creeping issues. So my suggestions for revisions, I discussed them with Assistant Director Mullen. I don't know if the commission would be open to a broader, basically broadening this limitation on accessory structures and how we approach that.
I think that these are your regulations. I do rely on understanding how the challenges that my staff may have either enforcing or whether something is helpful. You guys are in the neighborhoods as residents of the community though. So if you see something that you think needs to be added here, I think now's the time to kind of bring those up specifically so that our zoning enforcement as staff can also to kind of talk through that a bit in terms of, you know, what they see as problematic, what they see as something where we shouldn't be, we either could be a little bit more prescriptive, or if we're more prescriptive, it becomes more challenging for them from an enforcement perspective. So I think, you know, now's the time to, these are before you to review, to modify if you feel that's necessary, and then, you know, to get feedback from the enforcement staff.
So how should I go through this without taking up the rest of the evening?
But here's the thing. So ultimately, as with anything, when we vote on this, someone's going to make a motion and we can put, you know, make changes that get deliberated. I would say this is a good case of where if folks who have extensive comments or suggested edits, when we get to the point of voting on this is a good example of one where I would request that those be submitted or be brought in writing. So folks can actually look at those when we're deliberating. But I think if there's something significant, like a broad expansion of the accessory structures item, might be worth taking the temperature of the commission now to, so we don't have to get into.
Sure, I've got this written up here, so should I? How should,
Ultimately, the hearing's going to close and then we can't.
yes, so how do I commu- how do I
Leaving
communicate?
the hearing open if they want to make,
You can split this, you can split this baby up however you want to.
I mean, if
So
you, if you have, sorry, go ahead.
If based on the commission conversation, it's clear that several of these items don't require additional commission discussion. Once you've opened it up to public hearing, you get public comment, and then you want to close, and I'm just going to throw out a number. If there are 15 regulations we're looking at today, and you want to close 10 of them, but you want to leave 5 of those open, that moves us forward on some of the ones we want to progress. And then it gives us some time to reevaluate whether or not there are additions or revisions that need to be made to those other 5. So that's what I would, that's the process that I would request, that we're consistently moving forward those ones that we feel comfortable, you feel comfortable with as a commission. And then those ones that require additional work and revision, we can hold that open. These are your regulations.
I think that's a good approach. I would say, I mean, it sounds like we have probably at least 2 that we, so far, that we'd want to hold open. We can hold those open, then Commissioner Randolph, anyone else who has specific suggested either changes or questions to pose to the rest of the commission, we can do that
See Commissioner Braun.
beyond this meeting. I see Commissioner Braun, I see your hand. Does
Yeah,
that,
so I feel pretty good about the question I asked about tidal wetlands, but we're not voting tonight anyway. Can we at least hear back from Tim Bishop as to whether he has any problem with the setbacks? He probably won't because it was never their jurisdiction, but like an environmental issue or anything like that. And I wouldn't necessarily say hold it open, but I'd like to at least hear back before we vote, which might be next week, right?
I think that's where it's not going to be. So I think that's an item we don't have to hold a hearing open for, because I think we've done that in the past with staff comments. If he has
That's
comments,
fine.
we can accept those after hearing is closed.
Thank you.
I'll confirm it. Formally, I believe he was okay.
Sure.
So when we were talking about coverage in the beach area, and we talked about impervious pavement is removed, the replacement material should be limited to pervious substances and so on and so forth. Does that mean that any driveway currently in the beach area that's in the flood zone from,
Just the beach district.
so where are you, so when you
Beach
say
district goes from Penfield Pavilion all the way down to the point.
Okay,
And it doesn't cross the street until it gets past the Seagrave.
great.
And
then
then everything's,
in terms
that's
of
all, and then Pine Creek and French Street are part of the beach district as well.
both sides of the street. Okay, great.
Right, Old Dam Road.
Thank you.
And Old Dam Road, sorry, yes.
Great, thanks.
So we'll keep going through these for now. We'll circle back at the end to
So-
recap.
So on 14, I've got 14 written, discussed it with Assistant Director Mullen. Is there anybody else in the commission who has a keen interest in this, who got it written up here, so
I do.
I sent you a link.
Yeah, the one thing that I wanted to talk about is the duration that the pods are allowed on properties. So I can talk to you about that on the side.
Are we permitted to talk offline about this or?
You should really do it publicly.
Okay. All right, so go ahead.
So when someone does a renovation on their home, whether they're just painting or cleaning out a basement or changing carpeting, floors, et cetera, it can take several weeks. It can take several months between packing up a pod, doing the work, unpacking the pod. I think a month is too short a time. And I think it should be 90 days, and anything beyond that needs to have the neighbor's approval or maybe the town's approval. Not everyone fills out a permit when they're changing, doors and handles and door, carpeting, et cetera. So I think the permitting part of that, I think I just think it's another layer. I just think the duration should be expanded.
So I ran into this a lot years past, and former director Went would always fall under the side of caution that regardless of what the structure was, whether it was a shed, whether it was a pod, whatever, if it was compliant to the required setbacks and potential lot coverage and floor area, they could have it. But then I would make them fill a permit if that were the case. The other thing I would recommend is, again, there are times that people will use pods when they're doing construction, not just for things that don't require a permit, but things that do require a permit. And when that permit gets the CO or is in the process of obtaining the CO, the agencies go out and take a look at it. When we go out and take a look, if there's a pod or something like that sitting in the driveway, at that point, I'm happy to tell them that it needs to go within a certain time frame after their CO is issued, or I'll send them a citation. I could certainly do that. In some other cases, I haven't sent citations because of where they're located and that they're beyond the setbacks, or based on my calculation, they're okay in regards to coverages and so forth. But yes, there are people that will pull pods, and you're self-policed from neighbors. Hey, this has been sitting here for quite some time. I've gotten many phone calls over the years of that happening. I'd go out and knock on the door and try to talk to somebody rather than sending them a violation. Some cases it gets resolved, some cases it doesn't, in which case I've got to proceed differently. But sure, we're a vibrant town. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Got dumpsters everywhere. We got pods everywhere. We got sheds. We got things going up without permits.
It can be an eyesore, but I think 30 days is like.
Totally. Yeah, of course. And there are properties that are too tight. And some of these things are sitting in the front lawn for, 6 to 8 months. And I can certainly understand that. But, at any time, we get plenty of phone calls and we go out and we investigate and we do the best that we can to get them going if they're not required to be there anymore.
Commissioner Randolph.
So I just to run through this generally, since we're having this in the public. So I added some specificity to the number of boats. People have 3 kayaks in the yard. You said that wasn't an issue, but I want to make sure they're not prohibited. They're not.
We already have one. The regulation already states 1 boat.
Right, but if you have 3 kayaks.
I don't consider that a boat.
Well, it is a boat, though, right? We don't define a boat. So some specificity around that. Personal watercraft, more than one's probably okay. Untrailered boats, they need to be in the setback. I don't know if you have that in there.
I'm sorry?
Do you have the boats have to be in the setback?
Boats are an accessory structure.
Okay.
So yes, they do.
Okay. Yeah, I say in accordance with the setback. Small boat exception, I got that. Visibility maintenance, boats shall be permitted without screening, provided such storage complies with the location setback. Stored boats shall be maintained in a seaworthy or roadworthy condition. We talked about basically an up-to-date registration on it.
Well, I don't know if I have the jurisdiction on going on someone's property to verify registration.
Would be a
Police
boat's a violation.
The boat's violation is a different story.
Potential violation, and you can go on the property and see.
I can't go on the property. I'd have to get permission from them to go on the property.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying. I don't have,
Yeah.
even if I send them a violation, I don't have the ability to walk on their property.
Okay.
Walk on the neighbor's property.
Just storage
They
containers.
give me permission because they're the one that complained.
Storage containers, I don't know, how many, is it 1, 3? Certainly
Again,
not
that
9.
that falls under.
No, I'm asking the commission.
Yeah. Oh, the commission. I'll be quiet. Sir.
Should we limit it to 1, 3, 9? It should be.
You're looking at me when you say it.
Square footage of the Those could be two smaller ones.
Yeah, if you say you can have three.
I put the dimension on here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw
I put the
that.
dimension on, but it probably should be more than one, right?
Yeah, well, then what if there's like a massive construction site?
During construction, it's exempt.
So there's an ability when you rent these that they can be taken away and stored on site. You don't have to pay more. So when it's very large, most people don't want them in their front yard anyway. It's usually the smaller ones that they want access to those items that are inside. So
But I mean, should we limit it to one or should it be three? Shouldn't be nine. I'm pretty sure.
You don't like nine?
I don't like nine, but is three?
What do you normally see, Matt?
I honestly, I think if you limit, it could potentially harm the person who's looking to do whatever work they're looking to do on their property. I think, again, as I stated, things like this are self-regulated by the neighbors in the neighborhood.
Sort of.
Sort of. But, again, when people position them in a certain place, that enforceability, is, I don't like to say limited, but the handcuffs are loose, but they're on.
Right.
And it's, if you want, if you want to do one, if you want to do 10, it's entirely up to the board as to the number that you want to have. But when you do that, there's also a size, limit. When you call for a storage pod, what size do you have? You have this, you have, A through Z. And if you're going to limit it to 3, you also have to understand that different zones require different setbacks and different sizes.
8 by 8 by 20. So, but more than one, probably.
Again, that's,
More than one?
it depends on what kind of renovation the person's doing. I think.
And then I'm just run through, I'll get you, was that related to this specific question, number, duration?
It's a general comment.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, I agree with you that, neighborhoods kind of self-police. And I just, from a personal liberty standpoint, just a default setting of my feeling as an American citizen, I don't like if somebody wants to live in an HOA that has very stringent requirements, that's a choice that they can make.
Absolutely.
But if somebody goes and buys a parcel of land within reason, I think that they should be entitled to use and enjoy that land to the fullest extent of their, of their heart's desire. And so I do, while I understand somebody wanting to regulate, the external appearance and property values and, nobody wants a car with blocks up on fire in the front yard.
We've got those.
But no, I know, but at the same time, it's a very slippery slope.
Sure.
And I would personally feel it would be prudent to err on the side of personal liberty than to get real into we're in an HOA called Fairfield, Connecticut.
I agree, but that's entirely up to you folks.
I just wanted to put that on the record.
Yeah. But these pods are popping up and I think there's a consensus that they're
Right, but then pods lead
unsightly.
to basketball hoops.
Heroin.
Yeah, no, but they lead to
They're a gateway
basketball
accessory
hoops, they lead to
structure.
fences, they lead to other questions, it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah, but there are regulations on fences. Pods they're popping up and I don't, maybe we'll vote on it. We'll see if there's a consensus on whether, but then dumpsters. It's my next one here, number 14.5. What are our enclosure requirements for dumpsters now?
Commercial, they're required to be enclosed, screened. Residential, no.
So multifamilies don't have to have enclosed dumpsters?
Well,
Well,
it's a
that's,
multifamily project that was approved by this board,
or was it an 830G where you had very little discretion?
or is it a two-family?
But if there's a town
Or
reg
family.
on dumpster enclosures,
For the commercial,
most commercial properties have regulations on dumpster enclosures, and I see a lot of dumpsters that aren't enclosed in this town.
where?
Posters Hardware,
Okay. I can see that.
you can picture that one.
I can-
But, do we have regulations on?
Right.
We do.
Well, we do, but
Hardship.
keep in mind, we're a very old municipality too. So if it's an older commercial building that has been continually in use for a very long time. It may have actually been there before we have this requirement for the dumpster enclosure. So there's a practicality aspect, and then there's
The
really a
regulation
new
wasn't in place.
construction and a redevelopment focus on implementing some of the things that we want to see. But if it's pre-existing non-conforming and there's not a lot of space on a parcel, we may not have the ability to enforce something that has been in existence since the 20s, for example.
And Posters Hardware's been around for a while.
But we do have a regulation for dumpster enclosures?
Yes.
We do, yeah, which goes before this board every time an application comes.
Right, but it's not necessarily
It's
enforced.
in architectural standards.
Yeah, I can't, it would be hard for me to enforce one that is associated with a building that's been around for more than since before the 70s, which Posters Hardware's been. So it's
Utility,
deemed after, so here, I'll tell you this then, just as the state statute on setbacks is if you're in violation after a 3-year period, it's deemed legal nonconforming immediately. So I would fall under that inability to enforce their requirement to enclose a dumpster for the purpose of the dumpster being there more than 3 years.
not a structure. It's a garbage can.
No, dumpster's not a garbage can. It's a,
Sure it is. It's a movable, it's not a fixture, right? It's not a,
well, some of them are, some, not all of them are on wheels.
no, but there's not, it gets moved. It's not a fixture. It's not fixed to the land.
No, it gets picked up and put back
Anyway,
down, but-
I'll keep going.
All right.
Utility and work trailers, do we have any regs on?
If it's, it would be one, is what we limit it to, but
Is
if
it
there's
in
any writing,
Is it in the ordinance?
we have in the regulations, yes, so trailers and boats and, I don't have it off the top of my head, the rest of them, but there's, anything that's an accessory structure on wheels, you're allowed one.
Is it in the reg though right now?
Yeah, let me see the regs.
That's okay. Just, I'll go over it with Jonathan.
Yeah.
And then, vehicle parking on lawns.
We have no regulations that prohibit anybody from using their property, whether it be for grass or parking lot.
Blocking the road. Should we?
What happens if somebody has a gravel driveway and then grass grows underneath? Is that
It's
a lot?
it's a driveway now.
But is it?
People actually are now using a substance in the grass. If they do have a lot of large parties, people can park when there's limited street parking, they can park on their yard.
It's probably not a good thing.
Well, grass grows right through it. You can,
Oh,
yeah, grass grows through it. It's like a green substance that goes into the earth and
I'm just asking the commission whether we should allow people to park on their lawn.
John, can you stop sharing so we can see Commissioner Braun?
I'll show you something.
no, I know, but it's like,
Okay. All right. That's the end of my,
Well, I think the section before the part kind of gets to what I was going to recommend, which is that pools be included in the accessory structure section as opposed to a new section, unless there's some objection from.
Pools are an accessory to the primary. So that would fall under the requirements of the setbacks, no matter what.
I only mention it because I think based on what I saw for the proposed changes is that pools were gonna be a new section, section 26.
Yeah, as a,
restriction.
yeah, now, what was the,
It's because it is one of the highest volume questions that we get in the office.
yeah.
I'm buying a house. Can I have a swimming pool with that? Realtors all the time, they come in the office. Are they gonna be able to fit a pool here? So we're trying to make these regulations very user friendly in terms of what I think the high volume requests are. And swimming pools are, it's a feature that people ask for independent of accessory structures. So that's why we kind of pulled it as its own section because it's just a high volume inquiry.
But we do consider it an accessory structure regardless.
It
Yeah,
is,
no, I get that. I was just thinking about from a like cleanliness perspective and keeping that section free for something else. But if it's of usefulness to you all and interacting with the
I think it
public.
will be as time for everybody, to be honest.
All right, let's get back to the list and we'll circle back at the end on which ones we're gonna keep talking about. Amusement devices, anyone questions on deleting that section? Anyone? Questions about arcades?
We should have a funeral for that section.
Good idea.
If you're
Questions
Gen
on
X, you
the
feel it, you know.
alcoholic. Questions on architectural and site design standards?
Study.
You're just moving it, right? You're not.
For now, this is the moving it, the separate discussion to later on changes to it.
But more than moving it, we are now requiring that these apply to like the DCD, which it doesn't now.
It's only, it applies to the
So right now, it only applies to the design, the center design district and the neighborhood design district. When we redid this section, it does apply to other design business and design commercial sections. So we can either leave it the same,
I really like the fact that this is
Okay.
happening.
because I feel like there was a lot of discussion with the commission to have this be included with the design commercial district also. Now, this doesn't affect any of the setbacks within the design commercial district, which I know that we've talked about in order to make some of those districts more pedestrian oriented. We would still need to go back to the DCD section and talk through some of those standards. These are more, I think, to Commissioner Monahan's suggestion. These are more about appropriate site placement, appropriate number of, percentage of glass, for example, for exterior. So it gets into that, some of that architectural detail about the elements that we expect to see within commercial buildings.
Yeah, I'm really excited this is happening. I know it's something that was kind of on my list of things that I wanted to see happen. So it's, that to Mr. Mullins' point that there might be future changes to make it better, but the fact that this can happen now is awesome. Really excited to be in support of the change.
Fence and wall heights and setbacks, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. It's 4.12, which is fences in the beach area. So that should be in there. The question is, what is a fence? Because you'll note that in the beach area, there are a lot of people putting in posts. I mean, as I understand it, fence is allowed on a,
which fence?
well, in the beach area.
Yeah, which one's allowed? Or
Well, for a structure that's been added, or there basically no fences are allowed
correct, sorry, yes.
between the house and the beach.
Right.
Unless it was a vacant lot, in which case it's 25 feet, I guess, from the high water mark or something.
That would be this, that would be, yes.
I mean, there are lots of people putting in these posts with ropes going all the way to the high water mark. And
That was a conversation that I had with the previous director, and the post with, for the most, there was only 2 instances where, if I'm not mistaken, where that was brought down to the high water line where no one can pass at high tide.
To your attention.
Yes, and I believe at least one of them has been rectified.
Yeah, they moved it back a little bit.
Right.
Question is, should it be there at all?
It was determined based on Mr. Went that it was not considered a fence. A fence would be something that would be solid, greater than a foot above grade, held with posts. Just by having a rope, regardless of the thickness of the rope, identifying one's property for people from walking up onto it wasn't just like a sand dune fence that prevents erosion isn't considered a fence under the jurisdiction or the regulation of fencing in the beach district.
I can see a sand dune fence, but I consider the rope and posts to be a barrier.
But the
And-
land is owned by the homeowner.
That's true. But oftentimes, but if we have a provision that they can't have a fence, why should we allow that?
Because they own the land.
I think the beach should be public to all, but that's my personal view.
But their deed, until you get to the mean high water line, is their property.
Correct.
So they should have the right to use it in whichever way they want.
Unless one views the seashore as a different
Well, we could
approach,
have,
which we could.
I mean, we could debate this
Yeah.
when it comes time for. a
Well,
vote.
it should be,
Legally, it's mean high water line.
well, in terms of fences, they own it, but whether or not they can put anything on it is no different than a setback. If we make the thing for everything in the beach area, that could be. But at any rate, I guess the reference should be to 4.12, and then the question is whether we want to move that section on fencing to this one as well. So, just,
I would think not, just because the beach district is so specific
mhm.
and people really look to those regulations for that particular zone. That zone has a lot of very unique standards that apply to it. So I would think that should leave it within the beach district regulations. I mean, I think Matt and Chris can speak to that from an enforcement perspective, but I just think it makes sense because that is such a unique and different environment to leave them where they reside now.
Commissioner Randolph.
So do you get many questions on interpretations of fences? Because I know,
The beach district, yes.
No, just
Anywhere else in town, no.
yeah, because I have a deer fence, which isn't technically a fence, right?
I actually, I
Yeah.
will retract that. We do get calls on deer fencing.
Yeah.
And deer fencing is a specific fence. It's not PVC, it's not a wood, it's not, solid. Comes in sections. The pole itself is only 1 inch in diameter. And the fencing itself is mesh, and it can go 8 feet, 16, 24, depending on how high your deer are jumping.
I think I comply.
Yeah.
But should we have?
Well,
it
no,
then?
there is no, I don't enforce it at all.
No, but should we, to Commissioner Levy's point, should we have it there? Because fence isn't a defined term in here. Should we have a defined term for a fence?
Also, as
Probably make my job a little easier, but
Okay.
I
That's what we're
define
here-
it for the
that's what we're
people
here
when
for.
they ask me the question.
That's what we're here for.
yeah, and as to deer fence, I mean, you just said the posts are like 1 inch.
1 inch in diameter, yeah.
I mean, I've seen one of my neighbors tried to put one in that was, like
It's not a
3
deer
inches.
fence.
Yeah.
It's not a deer fence, though.
They claimed it was a deer fence.
They can claim it all day
I dealt
long.
with it. Yeah, but it would be a good
You've
idea.
got some great neighbors.
I just don't think we should be talking about beachfront and, people cordoning off their property during the summer so nobody can walk up to their house and sit on their deck. Close to their deck should be even remotely for consideration.
Okay. Other questions on that item?
So just to be clear,
All right.
can staff create a definition for fence?
I wrote it down. I got it. It's something we're gonna do.
Okay, lot coverage setbacks and screening for mechanicals. Questions? Revisions and clarifications regarding flashing, moving or animated signs.
I have a question about signs. Are you allowed to have bright light signs inside a store at night? Mobile shop has like big lights. Is that permitted?
Yeah.
Technically, it's not a sign because it's not on the window.
Okay.
So it's recessed. We have a number of places in town, especially ones that I'm familiar with on the post road. Caldwell Banker's got a couple that has screenshots of the houses flipping by. T-Mobile's got a screen. But I mean, those are,
Displays.
yeah, they're interior displays is what I would call them. And not define them as a sign. The ones that are outside the building or on the face of the windows or doorways, then yeah, they would be considered an extra sign.
Bright
And
colored lights inside the store at night when the store is no longer open.
I don't know if those are in the window.
no, we don't have anything in the regulations that would prohibit anybody from doing that.
I personally think it's an eyesore, but
Commissioner Randolph, go ahead.
So signs talked to Director Wood about this. Like signs are a huge topic.
I'm leaving if we're talking about signs.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to leave. So, can I request that we pass this, but we table the whole issue of signs as a separate effort going forward?
I don't even think that was in there as one that we were talking
I
about.
think, again, this is just a very small staff recommended tweak to this section. This doesn't close the door on the commission revisiting this section for a more comprehensive review.
Answer the question. Thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Swimming pools and hot tubs. Almost there. Special permits in design districts. Coastal site plans. And definitions, anything, any of those three. Okay. Any final questions on Commissioner Capozzi?
Oh, just in the definitions at the bottom, the swimming pool should be, to Commissioner Randolph's point, should be capital S, capital P.
Okay. Thank you all.
We have you in the audience who
Yeah,
wants.
that'll conclude the next presentation. We'll go to public comment. Folks in the room wish to be heard on this item? Do either of you wish to be heard on any of these?
Yes, we're new here, so we're very interested to know all these. I did have some interest, so I was doing internet search too, so I learned a lot. Thank you for the time.
Okay. If you want to come up and make a comment, you just come on up and give your name and address.
I have a question. So
Come on up.
Come up and give your name.
just sit here. So our town's
You need to come up and state your
regulation.
name.
你那说一下你要说名字什么的。
My name is Dongmei Li. My question is, our towns, where American citizen will follow our American Constitution. So we are introduce the towns regulation. So it's a very district is follow the state act. But if we have think about how it fit our Constitution.
So the state does dictate what we can include within our zoning regulations, sometimes generally, sometimes very specifically. What we can regulate is also defined by certain court cases. But we do have a lot of discretion at the local level to dictate what can be built, where it can be built, within the parameters that are given to us within state law.
Okay.
Does that help answer that?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I want to learn more about it. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a property tax. How our property tax follow our Constitution. That's what I'm thinking about it.
You would have to talk to the assessor about that.
Okay.
It's every local municipality, you pay different taxes based on the level of services that each municipality provides. And you make that choice by choosing where you want to live in terms of, you know, if you want to live in a place where you pay less taxes, that's probably a more rural environment where you don't have very many services. But here in Fairfield, we have a lot of services, so we have a lot more development area.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
And one more reminder, if you're joining remotely and wish to be heard, please sign in a chat or press the raise hand button. While someone,
We have Austin. Just gonna ask him to unmute.
Address.
Austin, are you there?
Hey, everyone, can you hear me?
Ken,
All right, fantastic. So good evening. My name is Austin Folds. I live at 1370 Fairfield Beach Road. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. So I just wanted to focus specifically on the role of, this is in regards to swimming pools in the beach area. So I would want to focus specifically on the role that FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program, since FEMA, compliance has been cited as a concern in the proposed ban on pools in the beach district. To my knowledge, FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program do not require municipalities to prohibit pools in the flood zones. Therefore, FEMA's framework is based on mitigation and flood resistant design, not outright bans. So I'm hard pressed. I haven't found a coastal community up from, starting from Greenwich all the way up to Rhode Island that has banned pools in a coastal community. Basically, if they meet I know the staff alluded to frangible, but if it meets elevation anchoring, flood venting via hydrostatic relief standards, I would respectfully ask the town to clarify whether FEMA has explicitly directed Fairfield to ban pools within this district. Um, this proposal reflects a local policy choice made out of caution that, the distinction matters, especially when residents are being told this is a FEMA requirement. Um, Additionally, I'm concerned that pools are being treated differently than other accessories as, as I listen to, talking about dumpsters and pods, boats, trailers, that are still allowed in flood zones, such as, additional accessories. So I guess, if the concern is that like displacement of wave action or obstruction of like flood flows, those issues can be addressed through, working with a proper engineer, design standards, et cetera, hydrostatic relief and so forth. So I'll wrap this up, but basically I just wanted to, encourage the town to consider whether a regulated, FEMA compliant approach could achieve the same, flood safety goals without unnecessarily restricting, property tax paying owners, again, within their, constitutional right to, have their land and do what they choose to do so, obviously with following, the framework that the town outlines recommended based on FEMA. So again, sorry for the long-winded, kind of rant here, but I just wanted to add that piece. So I appreciate you guys' time and consideration.
Thank you.
Ask them a question.
We're not asking questions, folks. We have another Matthew H. Okay, go ahead. Is he? Yes.
Hi, yeah, my name is Matthew Halleck, and I have to say legally in the beginning, I am on the
Yes,
ballot
state your-
for first,
Address?
6 Somerville Street, Fairfield. I'm on the ballot for selectman, coming up as an independent on a reform platform. So I take responsibility for anything I say, and I pay for all expenses. And by the way, anybody that has anything to say for any changes or anything you want to do, reach out to me. I'm all ears. My phone has been blowing up with anything and everything that you want changed and things in town. I'm here for you and I want to listen and help you. So just a few things in regards to what I just heard as far as the setback with the Conservation Commission. It is a little distressing to know that they have be told that they have no jurisdiction. I think we should have an earth first environment. Last month, the Harbor Management Commission was told they had very little jurisdiction as well. It was a similar kind of thing. And it's really not what I like to hear, that zoning is making these decisions without consulting the conservation and the natural resource guardians that we have. Getting into, but I really wanted to talk about the plan and submitted the POCD.
Mr. Halleck, this is about these proposed regulation changes. So please keep the comments limited to that.
Oh, so we're not going to talk about the POCD at all? Okay. Well, I guess that was it then. Just wanted to talk about that change then for that's distressing to me to hear that conservation and the harbor management have this limited say. We have extremely weak oversight and governance and authority from the conservation and from those groups. This has been true. Veterans will know ever since Thomas Stenke was relieved of responsibilities when the third train station was built, and we have never replaced that authority or that figure to be guardians for the environment. And I think things like this are just one little step after another of an erosion of the protection of the environment. Thank you all very much, and I appreciate everybody's service and working late. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Go.
Last call, if you're joining remotely and wish to be heard, please indicate that in the chat. Okay, I will close the public comment on these items. Anything else you want to respond to? So we will hold open the hearing on section 5.7 multifamily residence districts and section 14 accessory structures. Unless there's any final,
And you're keeping open 5.7 and which other one?
and section 14 on accessory structures.
And not fences.
Was there, so it sounded to me, and if you disagree, let me know. It sounded to me like that was really a dispute that has to be deliberated, but not really a question of that would be resolved through, further. I mean, it's like a difference of opinion, right? The other two, I feel like need further explanation.
That needs
Exploration.
further, we need a definition and something that can be addressed separately.
Yeah, so those are Commissioner Capozzi, those are the two that I identified to keep open. If there are others that folks think need significant further exploration, let me know.
Oh, I just, to Commissioner Monahan's point, I thought we would leave the, I know it wasn't explicitly said, but I thought we would leave the definitions section open to add definitions for offense or any other kind of terms that are a little bit.
So again, if it's just a definition, I think that's the kind of thing that could be addressed as a recommendation as part of a motion. I think the two that I had indicated leaving open really requires substantial additional exploration and working things out. I think a definition added as a addition. Commissioner Delgado.
I think with 5.7, unless others feel differently, I don't take objection to what's being proposed. I think that there's probably an opportunity to do more later, but we could treat it like the architectural standards instead. I think this is a step in the right direction, but
Okay, that's fair. But we'll keep the hearing open on accessory structures. Sounds like.
What's the,
You have a question for me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
request to be recognized?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
So,
Thank you.
what's the suggested process for, clarifying? So we said that a definition for fences is something we could handle with staff and it's significant, deemed to be minor, whereas 15 is a larger thing. What's the suggested approach?
Well, so you have, it sounds like, I mean, you wrote out, I see that you drafted your own section on that,
Yeah.
right? And you got some feedback from the commission today. My suggestion would be that you incorporate the feedback you heard into a revised version of that we can discuss at a subsequent hearing.
Working with staff?
Working with staff.
Okay.
And then we can continue that conversation. Okay. Does that work?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what I would also say is, John will make the revisions that he heard discussed today based on your comments and any clarifications in that language. We will schedule this for the next planning session as old business for all of these items that then you can vote on each individual one. We will keep, because there's no time frame here. Once we meet the statutory requirement for the required notification to regions and all of that, the amount of time that you spend thinking about the regulations and deliberating after that, as long as the content is very similar, you haven't made really significant changes that then would have to be re-referred out, the timeline is really up to the commission. So that's what I would, that's the way that I had thought that we would structure it, is we put it on the next planning session under old business, except for the one that you're leaving open. And then you would vote on those as you see fit.
Good.
This zoning bill that's come down the pike that we have to make some pretty significant decisions on in the next couple of months should be our priority. Like, this is all very important, but to spend an entire evening when we have one planning session a month for the next couple of months, focused on it, I think it's great. We kind of got this in, but I think we need to shift gears and get a lot of information that we need in order to, I'm going to use the word protect ourselves a bit from this bill, and what it could do to our downtown specifically. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Commissioner Delgado.
I guess for the adoption of the changes, correct me if I heard you wrong, say, the thought is that when we do decide to adopt them, it would only be during a planning session.
Only because the next 2 agendas for January are pretty full. I would recommend that for these ones that you have closed the public hearing on tonight, we wait for you to do the adoption for the next planning meeting in February. Just because we're trying to
Because of how the
balance.
calendar works out, right? Because I think generally
Yes.
speaking, things that we discuss in planning sessions can be voted on at a subsequent regular meeting.
Correct.
I don't think we're making a practice of waiting until the next planning session. but
That's
in this
correct.
case,
It's just the way that, because we had a very nice break in December, we have a little bit of a backlog to deal with for our traditional project meetings for January.
Suspect some of the items on the next agenda may end up spilling over, given how packed it is.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so I will close the public hearing on all items except for section 14 on accessory structures. And hold that one open. Not being,
And can we seek something from Tim Bishop?
I think Mr. Mullen indicated he'll check in with.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the ban on swimming pools at the beach, in the beach area, specifically Pine Creek Avenue, I just think is a complete overreach. Given I understand kind of, where this gentleman is coming from Austin today at 1370 Fairfield Beach Road. I understand exactly where he's coming from. And, the question is, has FEMA said, we shouldn't be building these? Is this a directive from FEMA? Are we one of the only towns that actually is implementing this, complete quote unquote ban on swimming pools? It's a very big blow to people who bought down near the water to be told, I can't do that with my property under any circumstances, even if FEMA has different guidelines. So not to be difficult, I just think that's a tough pill to swallow.
Right. Fair. So,
Can we keep that one open? Or is
well,
that-
I've already closed it. I mean, the commission can vote to postpone it.
I think there should be a
if it
hearing
wants to,
where we
but-
invite the, residents in that particular area to also voice their concerns.
Yeah, I mean, it could yes, it can also be amended. I mean, the hearing's closed. We can, in theory, reopen it. I think I haven't heard enough to warrant reopening the hearing that we just closed, but I would say that when this comes up at the meeting where it'll be on the agenda, it's up to the commission with, as far as what to do with it. And if the commission isn't ready to vote on it for whatever reason.
I would personally feel as though that, that would be a blow to a lot of people who don't even know that this is on docket to be completely banned.
That's a fair position, but again, I think that's a position that can be deliberated.
Yeah, I mean, I assume we'd be voting on each of these individually.
Yeah, I think they're
Raised at that
I
point.
think that's how it'll go. Commissioner Capozzi.
For what it's worth, I support Commissioner Monahan's position on the swimming pools.
All right, I would like to save
No, I just wanted to put that out there that
until we get there. The hearings are closed, so we really shouldn't be having further discussion on this. So, but we'll have that discussion when the time comes. So that's the last item. So during this evening's meeting, thank you. Thanks to the three of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Sorry, we talked so much.
Any other given night, it would have been till 10.
We got another hour and a half.
Yeah. Talk about now.
No, I mean, I can talk about information I think we need to have in terms of this new housing build, like an update on the transit oriented development study. current study, 7 years old. You know, a coastal flooding study, a holistic.
That's underway right now.
Study. Yeah, okay, can we talk about that for maybe 15 minutes?
The meeting's closed and it wasn't on the
Okay.
agenda, but I
Okay.
think
Planning
that's all
meeting, and this
inform.
is supposed to be about planning.
About planning, I think that's all stuff we're going to get to. We have to get to it. Raise your hand anymore.
Okay.
Meeting's over.
Staff is available, right, guys?
Mhm.
So I think, Commissioner Monahan, if you avail yourself to staff, they'll.
This should be done by this commission with the town attorney's advice. We should know all the parameters of the new law. It should be dissected. There's a
I'm
lot of
sorry, I didn't-
complications in it.
Commissioner Monahan, finish. I will in a sec. So for additional information, town staff has plenty of information to avail yourself with. So I think that that's just an opportunity for you. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't agree with that because this is a commission project and we don't even know what direction our staff is going in. We never asked them to draft the regulations. We never gave them guidance on what to draft. We don't know what we should be doing or what we could be doing to protect our town from the worst aspects of this housing bill. There are things we could be doing right now that I don't know if staff is working on or not. And we should not be going rogue talking in the back room. This should be done in the public record so people can see what we're working on. I truly believe we need our town attorney to come and advise us on all the intricacies of this bill. Like no one's talking about the 8% we can save from the parking ban. Is staff working on that? I don't know. I don't want to go to a back room and talk about it. I want to talk about it right here in the public forum. So I'd like to know that.
Yeah, it's going to be on the agenda. We'll discuss it. I think everyone recognizes there's a lot of important implications for
Can
the
we have
bill.
that, can we have the town attorney to the meeting?
The town attorney is going to be at the,
January 13th meeting.
to discuss pending litigation. We can talk about, I think probably just for that.
So what I would say is that in executive session with the town attorney, you do have to state what you're discussing. So I would say that given the number of cases that he's going to be discussing that evening in terms of providing an update, I don't think that it's appropriate for us at this point to add that particular item for that next meeting. I think it's something where you can ask the town attorney, can we schedule you at a future meeting to talk through some of that?
Then we're in March.
But I also don't think,
February.
well, nothing's happening, nothing's being thrust on this commission. This commission votes on everything. So if anything that happens is through the consent of the commission. So there's no, the staff is not going rogue. Unless the commission, a majority of the commission thinks that the staff is going rogue. So
Staff has no authority to pass.
staff does not have authority to pass anything, to adopt any new regulations. I mean, nothing is going to happen without this commission.
Well, if I may, I think it's customary, right, to rely on staff to assist us in making decisions. So I think that, you know, the concept or the comments being said about this process, like that is typically how it would be handled anywhere. I think letting staff who work with these regulations more often than we do, take a first crack at understanding how our regulations will be implicated or changed as a result of this House bill would be I think a logical, a practical first step in trying to understand what the changes are going to be. Like I understand it is at the discretion of the commission, but you know, this is with staff that these decisions will be made. And to call it a commission project as though you know, we aren't working directly with our staff who are going to be the best people to assist us in this. You know, it just, I feel like it's devoid of.
I'm not going to censor myself on this topic because I feel as though maybe there's not an agreement with what you believe needs to happen and you're in support of HB 8002. And some people are not. So for you to be drafting and you to be directing is great because you're a very smart person and you know what you're doing. However, when it comes to this legislation, there may be some things that the majority of people in this town want to make sure is looked at and we're aware of as a vehicle to maybe protect ourselves in certain avenues of this bill that we'd like to know about. So, to say that everyone is in agreement with HB 8002 is wrong.
Who said
I am
that?
not in agreement with.
I don't think anyone said that.
Are you all in agreement that this was a positive bill for the town of Fairfield?
I think regardless of that, we can just acknowledge that there are,
I'd like you to first
changes.
answer it. Do
I
you
think that's
believe
like
that
asking
it's a
somebody, do
strong
you
bill?
like rain?
No, it's not.
If someone has a leaky roof, they don't like rain, but if someone has a farm, they like rain. It's like, you can't just black and white it.
Okay.
It's not,
Okay.
there are issues that are, I think to your point, there are issues that are town specific
Yes.
that may not be great for Fairfield, but are
Agreed.
great for hypothetically West Hartford. I don't know.
Agreed.
So to your point, I agree that there are nuances to the bill, but I think procedurally allowing the town people and the attorney to draft something to get the scaffolding up and then allow us a similar process to go through and ask about the nuances is a more fruitful exercise with that is more streamlined. That's just my opinion. But I don't think that it limits anyone's ability to ask pointed questions about why is this here? What is this address? And is there another way?
Agreed. Agreed. But I do think there's a lot of data that we need to make sure we get and research that we need to get that we may need if we do want to push back on any parts of this legislation that could be potentially hurtful to the downtown, to Southport, and to other areas that, are very dense already.
Kathy, you could just jump in. You don't have to raise your hand.
Okay, so, so can I ask staff right now, are we working on areas of town that we could designate for being free of the parking aspect of this? We're allowed to preserve 4% in up to 2 zones, which will be exempt from the parking ban. Are we already working on that? We don't know what you're working on, so I'd like to know what you are working on. Is that one of the things you're working on?
I am not working on that as of yet.
Okay, so I think our commission needs to know what you're working on, and also we need to know what we're allowed to do to preserve as much flexibility as we can, because no one really understands the definition of summary review. Are there public hearings? Will there be public comment? Can we use information we glean from the public, even in a summary review? Can we put conditions of approval on it, even in a summary review, if it would protect health or safety? Those are all things I think the town attorney needs to advise us on.
I'm
But I
particularly
think-
concerned about Southport Harbor and the ramifications of that district on the transportation review. And that I would like to know how, who, what, where, when, and why regarding that particular area as well, as I'm sure we all would. So it would be nice to know legally, not subjectively, where we stand on that topic.
But even legally, I think there's what is legal, but what is legal has to be with some direction too, because one framing of it is what can we legally do to stop this? But that is a subjective framing of that, because another position might be might not be looking to stop a particular piece of it, right? So even like what can we do to stop versus what can we do, there, it's not, I don't think it's as subjective as, I don't think it's objective versus subjective as cut and dry as the question suggests, because what can we do to stop this is a subjective framing of the question. There of course are legal bounds to it, but
Not many.
So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Steve.
it's a state law that we need to comply with, but how we comply with it is a process. And as has been the case in the past, we generally start with relying on staff to get the ball rolling. But that's just part of the process. As to the, beyond that, whether we approve, don't approve, want to make changes, that's all completely open. It's just a question of how we get to that substantive discussion. And in my mind, I always prefer to have something in front of me, and then
I would rather see something that I completely reject. At least it's something to react to than,
Exactly.
it's not I don't think saying staff can, begin a process of drafting something, I don't think is an endorsement of whatever they come up with.
Maybe we should also be giving framework as to what's important to us. Kathy's mentioned about, 4% in two particular areas. Maybe that should be a priority before the next meeting to say, is that something we should be looking at? Is that something they should identify? Historic, areas of town that we want to protect, certain parcels of property that are important to the town to say, we don't want those ever future developed. Is that a priority for you all? Because to me, it would be a
I
priority.
think there's a lot of different ideas and topics getting thrown into the overall bucket of what the impact of the potential law is. So I think, and a lot of them it's misinformation. What you just stated, I have never heard as an issue or concern with the law. But I think what would be helpful, the word scaffolding was used before. If we could get an abstract of the law, some type of overview to help inform us what are obligations for compliance, because it is the law. And we're going to need to comply with the law to find out what the scaffolding and abstract of the law is. That would be, I think, helpful for the commission.
Sure.
And
Happy to provide
then
that.
we could understand what the categories of things were and that where the potential issues or concerns might be, and help demystify some of the fears. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there right now. And it's an election year, and there's a lot of misinformation being put out by very normally responsible people. I've read this thing many times and I'm still not clear on it, but if we could get you all,
Nebulous, yes.
if we could get you all to kind of, abstract what our obligations are in the time frame for it, because we do have time to do this.
Yeah, I also think there's a way to break it down. So just using the parking piece as an example, if you want to talk about, Kathy's mentioned the exemptions we can carve out and has mentioned, I think, downtown as an example, that if we say, parking is a piece of the bill that we have to prioritize because of deadline purposes, I think there's a way to break out like the big chunks of what is in the parking piece of that bill and say, okay, one big chunk of that is these exemptions. What is the temperature of the commission on where do you want to see exemptions, and if so, where? Because one person might say, I want to see those exemptions in downtown. Another person might say that's the last place it should be because whatever reasons, right? So, but then that could be a sort of conceptual conversation about a big picture item that can, give some direction on, yeah.
A category.
Right. So there are little nuancy pieces and then there are big picture items. And I feel like if we start looking at what do we need to prioritize because of deadlines that are coming up first, and then how do we break out the biggest items in there, not too dissimilar from how we tackled the POCD components, right? And I think that's probably a productive way of starting to tackle some of that.
But what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of lack of information. There's a lack of information on the impact of this bill. And if we could get some type of summary or abstract of the bill and what we need to do and what the deadlines are, I think that would help.
I'd like to talk to the attorney. I'd like to ask him questions after this versus just getting something in writing. I mean, I think it's important that I think a lot of people have a lot of questions on this particular topic as it pertains to the law. Can we carve out a particular area of our town to say, if we're doing a lot in this particular transit-oriented development, can we not, target this transit-oriented development, given the density already and the restrictions and traffic patterns surrounding it? I mean, there's certain questions that I think are, questions that a lot of the town would want to ask that, I feel compelled to ask.
There's certain, I've studied the bill to some extent, but not a deep dive like I would expect our town attorney to do, but certain parts of the bill are opt-in, but there might be incentives or there might be penalties if you don't. And there are different deadlines. And I think anything we're doing now, we need to set ourselves up. These are not regs that we need to pass just to comply. There are regs we need to pass to protect ourselves and to protect our ability to use as much local control over our land use decision making as we can. So there are ways of perhaps rezoning areas that might be commercial. There might be regulations we want to pass for the as of right developments that could come out of the commercial to residential as of right conversions. So those are things we need to look at, and we need to understand how far we can go to protect ourselves. It's not just we're writing regulations to implement the bill. There's a whole panoply of things that we could be doing to expand our ability to make sound decision makings in the future about land use. So it's not just writing some regulations to comply with the bill. We have decisions to make, and we have to have this done by, I believe, July 1st, a lot of these, which is when some of the most onerous provisions I consider go into effect. So after that point, you will have developers coming in and you'll have no say over what happens pretty much. It'll almost be like, automatically approved if we don't have a lot of stuff in place to protect our town. That's why I would like to talk to the town attorney. That's why I asked that it be put on the agenda for today. I understand he was busy, but I almost think we should have, I don't know, maybe an offline conversation. We need to understand this so we know, and we need to direct staff. We should not wait till a draft comes in that doesn't cover a lot of the things that we think it should cover. The 8% is not being worked on. Maybe it will now. How are we going to pick the zones for those two 4% zones? There might be, you don't want to put it in an area that doesn't need protection, like, a school or the town hall property.
Get that,
Okay.
Kathy, I just.
Who's going to do that? Are we going to do it? When are we going to get the information to do it?
I just outlined the suggested process for taking some of that on.
What's the process? Not meeting with the town attorney?
I don't think one precludes the other. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I think
Time is a wasting. It's got to be done within we've got 5 months left.
So where does that leave us?
Well, I think it leaves us with, Emily, you'll start to look at working backwards with, the closest deadlines to, I don't know, they fall into buckets in terms of deadlines.
Yes, I mean,
and then
what
the
I will
ones that are.
say is that there is a portion of the statute that goes into effect in July. Much of it went into effect as of January 1st. So, there will be a catch-up period of time in terms of municipalities dealing with some of the zoning regulation revisions that need to be, implemented within their regulations to deal with it. Just like, we brought to you today that change to the coastal site plan application for a bill that already went into effect on October 1st. There's going to be a gap and a delay, right? Law is also, as projects take time to come to fruition. So, even if we had an application that was submitted today and wanted to take advantage of the state statute, I will tell you that all of the developers that I talk to, none of them are going to build projects without any parking spaces because they want to be able to market these projects. So I feel like there's a lot more concern in terms of the distrust of people who are potentially going to be building things within town. They still have to market these things. So there's not going to be developments built without any parking spaces, even though the statute doesn't allow us to regulate the number of parking spaces for developments less than 16. They're just not going to be able to market them. So, we do have time to work through this. I realize that some of this has been in effect as of January 1st, but we have time to work through this and to do it the right way.
The parking ban and the commercial to residential conversions go into effect on July 1st. We need to pass whatever regulations we can do between now and then. That's our job, to protect our town, not to rely on developers to do exactly what we want. They will, rightfully so, use the law to their advantage. We need to pass these regulations before those aspects go into effect.
It's not a parking ban. And again, your position is, you're entitled to that position. But I think during the POCD process, a number of us expressed a different position, which is that we're overparked as a town. And so this commission can decide if it thinks it needs to be protected or if this is an opportunity with regards to parking.
Why would we not protect ourselves by reserving as much acreage as we can from something that we have no control over? This commission might disagree on how much parking we need on a parcel, but why would we not want the flexibility to make that decision? If we don't preserve the 8%, we don't have that chance anymore.
We could talk about it. All I'm saying is you're giving one framing of it, and that's not
Well, I'm saying we have an opportunity to protect land from that parking law, and we will miss the boat if we don't do it on time.
I object to the use of the word protect. This commission will do what it thinks is best for the town. It's not a question of protecting or
71% of people in the state of Connecticut, according to the latest census report, drive to work every day. They stop to pick their kids up. They go downtown, they pick up lunch, they pick up dinner, they go here, they go there. They need their cars. They're not in an area where, you know, people are just going to all of a sudden move downtown so they can walk around. It's a unique environment. And so people need to go to the library, they need to pick up books, they need to go to the bank, they need to go to the drive-through to the new banks that are opening. And so they're not going to go downtown and use our commercial and, you know, our retail if there's no place to park. So it's imperative that we have that parking downtown. And I agree with you. It's going to be very hard to implement some of these without, you know, having parking spots, but, you know.
Respectfully, currently 71% of people drive.
Mhm.
In the future, will that be the case? Are we going to build land use that reflects something that's dysfunctional, is overpriced, and is constrained by land? Or are we going to change our pattern of development so we're less car reliant, so people don't get killed across the post road, so people can ride their bikes, so people can walk to the train, so people can commute to the city or to Stamford without their car? We don't need to replicate the mistake we have now. The idea is to change our pattern of development to be less car reliant.
And
So
I
in the
wouldn't,
town of Fairfield, with
In-
60-something thousand people, now there are, you know, 2,000 units not yet completed, which potentially could be another 4,000 cars. And the main downtown area being the most important area for our town, to go downtown and be entertained and to walk around and to go to stores, et cetera, they all want to come downtown. Are we going to bus them? Are we going to assume they're going to walk from Greenfield Hill downtown to the beach? They're going to be using cars.
so the question implies that
Or mopeds or self-driving cars or whatever they're going to be using. People like their cars and they want their cars.
the question implies that reducing parking requirements is going to eliminate all parking, which is just not
That's not the
what's going to
case.
happen. It's not going to
So
happen.
if we read the let me just point out, if we read the state statute the way it's written now, and this could be, you know, legislators, they're not perfect. Many laws get revised over time because they write something a certain way, and then they read it and they go, oh, maybe this applies to this. If you read the law today, it could apply to 95% of the town. That includes our single family homes. I don't know any contractor who's not going to build parking spaces with a single family home, right? So, you know, I think that we are villainizing contractors, even single family home contractors, because right now the state law says if you've got anything under 16 units, that includes 95% of the town, which is single family residential construction, where those contractors now can say, well, I don't want to include that garage. Of course, they're not going to do that because they wouldn't be able to sell the house, right? So
The way he's speaking, we don't need cars in the future, so maybe they can sell the house.
I don't think that's
I think
quite
there
what
was
he said.
assumptions made on both sides. Like
Nobody's villainizing contractors, and I certainly was not. Okay. I do not appreciate being accused of that. I believe contractors should use the law and make as much profit as they possibly can. Okay. I have clients who are contractors. What I'm trying to say is this commission is responsible for the future of our town, and we need as much flexibility as we can. I'm talking about protecting our flexibility, our authority, our power, our ability to make sound decisions without being unduly constrained. And to the extent this law allows us to preserve 8%, we need to do it. If we don't do it, it's negligence, malpractice, in my opinion. So we need to do it. We need to pick out the best places where it gives us the best opportunity to do parking the way we want to do it. And even then, by the way, we're still constrained to the 1 space per bedroom or 2 spaces for 2 bedrooms, a restriction, even if we are allowed to do it. So there's still restrictions in the law, even if we do that. So again, we have 5 months to take full advantage of whatever we can do, pass regulations.
okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the engaging discussion.
Still on?
We got to 9 o'clock.
Yeah.